Hey guys, I'm Cameron. I'm a marriage therapist and the founder of the Hitched app, the first ever evidence-based blueprint for lifelong marriage. So I'm really excited about today's video for a couple of reasons. Number one, each of these 10 rules that I'm going to share with you to divorce-proof your marriage, not only are they very evidence-based, so they've got a lot of research backing them, but they're also all rules that I actually use in my own marriage. So I know, at least personally and with my clients, that these are all very helpful. So I hope you get a lot out of this video. So let's go through each of the 10 rules. Number one, define marriage properly. Number two, become someone worthy of marriage. Number three, marry the right person. Number four, find your marriage's authority. Number five, embrace parenting with hope. Number six, keep dating your spouse. Number seven, design your home around your family. Number eight, establish a family schedule. Number nine, find the right community. And number 10, get as much support as possible. So before I go through each of these rules in more detail, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And if you know anyone who could benefit a lot from this message, please do share this video with them. That lets me know that you guys want to see more content like this. Okay, rule number one, define marriage properly. So a lot of people, when they get married, they have this idea of the reason that they're getting married is because they want to spend the rest of their life with their spouse. They love their spouse or whatever the other reasons are. So we have an idea of why we're getting married, but we don't necessarily have a concrete idea about why we will stay married and why we would ever break up. And these are really important pieces of the definition of your marital commitment. So it's, why are you getting married in the first place? Why are you going to stay together? And why would you guys ever break up? And the reason these second two pieces of the definition matter so much, first of all, why you want to stay together, that is going to be crucial for all the difficult moments that are inevitably going to come up in your marriage. Every couple throughout the course of their relationship, especially when you plan on being together for a lifetime, you're going to run into some serious problems, whether that's internal to the relationship between the two of you, or it's external. It's life circumstances, it's stuff with your kids, it's stuff with your in-laws or your own family or your health or your job or whatever it is. Whether it's internal to the relationship or external, it is really going to test your marriage. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you've already been through some real tests, some real trials. Otherwise, you wouldn't be trying to build skills to improve your marriage. So you probably already know what I mean when I say that every marriage is going to be tested. And more is that the case the longer you two are together. And so there will come a day for every couple, I really believe this, when it would be easier to walk away from the marriage than it would be to stay. Easier doesn't mean right. It doesn't mean that it would be right to leave, but it would be simpler. It would require less effort, less pain, less persistence. And so when you get to that day, you want to already have a good enough reason to stay. Otherwise, there's a decent chance that you don't. And so you want to know why you're getting married, why you're staying married, and why you would ever break up. So obviously, we all have to have boundaries to protect ourselves, protect our kids, protect our spouse. And so if there comes a day that living in your home with your spouse, for whatever reason, is putting in jeopardy your safety, your spouse's safety, your kid's safety, that's a moment when you have to step away. Does that mean you get divorced? Not necessarily. It's not necessary for every couple. A lot of couples work through situations where their safety is at risk, either psychologically or physically, and then they're able to work through it. That does happen, but you need that boundary because you need to understand the lane that you and your spouse are staying in this marital commitment. And so the reason that this definition matters so much is because if you know why you're getting married, why you're staying married, and what the boundaries are that you have to stay in order to stay married, you are much more likely to stay together when the going gets tough. You're much more likely to stick to your agreement that you both made on that wedding day when you actually fully understand what the agreement is. It's not just the emotional commitment and the excitement that you felt on your wedding day. It's the decision to keep committing to each other over and over again every day for a lifetime. In order to live out this rule in your own marriage, sit down with your spouse. You can do this on your own first, and then come together with your spouse and think about what your marital commitment really means. And if it means a lifetime, if it really means forever, for better, worse, in sickness and in health, and all the other vows, if you really take that seriously, then that needs to be at the forefront of your mind and your spouse's mind every time you guys get into a fight, every time something hard happens. You have to remind yourself that this is your commitment, this is what you signed up for, and this is what you're going to stick to. Rule number 2, become someone worthy of marriage. So this is probably my favorite rule because I think this is the only rule that you have total control over personally without your spouse's participation at all. And that is the game of self-improvement. That is the idea that knowing your limitations and your strengths, trying to play to your strengths while also trying to shore up any weaknesses you might have as a spouse, and really being, almost brutally honest with yourself to the point not where you're adopting a mindset of shame, where you think that you are totally bad or useless or there's no hope for your improvement. You don't ever want to get to that point, but you do want to adopt as much responsibility as possible for becoming a better spouse. Because if we're honest with ourselves, the quality of the spouse that you are, that I am, that doesn't have to do with who we're married to. Saying that I can only be a good spouse when my husband treats me well means that I am constantly being controlled by someone else's behavior, someone else's actions. And that's not the life that I want to live. And I think for most people, we don't want to live that life. We want to feel like we have some real autonomy over the way we think and speak and act. And that is particularly relevant in marriage, where sometimes it does feel like it's hard to be a good spouse when your spouse isn't treating you well. But if you can be the best version of yourself, if you can treat your spouse even better than you think he or she deserves, imagine how much better your marriage could be if you were perfect. For a little added motivation on this one, I think it's interesting to think about how when we ask someone to marry us or we agree to marry someone, we are agreeing to a commitment and expecting a commitment from someone else that is the biggest commitment we could ever make. It's an entire lifetime. It's every moment you have. It's every breath, every bit of energy, every idea that you have, you are promising to somebody else. You are promising to join your total being with another person. And when we ask that commitment or expect that commitment from our spouse, what are we doing to deserve that? A lot of the times I think about, this is the biggest commitment we ever ask of somebody, and yet we do so little to deserve it. When do we ever expect somebody to give their whole selves to us, and yet we do so little to deserve all of them? So what could you start doing today to deserve marriage, to deserve that commitment from your spouse, to deserve a lifetime with somebody else? Rule number 3, marry the right person. So for everybody who's already married, obviously you've already picked your person, so you've got this one down. For everyone who's not married yet though, and I think this can be particularly relevant also for people who are married, because it's important to understand the things that lay the foundation for your relationship, so that when the going gets tough and when you guys are having a lot of fights or something else is going on in the relationship, you can fall back on this strong foundation, trusting that you do have enough in common in the areas that really matter in order to make things work. There are a few areas that we need to find alignment with in our spouse in order to make a marriage really successful, according to many decades of research on happy couples. Those areas are physical attraction, having the same core values, having compatible life goals, and being prepared to place the needs of the marriage and the family first above our own individual needs or desires. Most people will probably think it's pretty self-explanatory. Mutual physical attraction is very important for any long-term relationship. So if anyone ever tries to shame you for wanting to be attracted to the person you're married to, don't let them. On the flip side of that though, physical attraction sexual chemistry doesn't just come from what we look like. A lot of it comes from our personality and our values and how we treat each other. So it's a very holistic attraction that binds you two together in a way that is beyond mere friendship. The research is very clear that when we're physically attracted to each other, we are more satisfied in our marriage. We fight less and we enjoy spending time together more. Second one, having the same core values. This is probably the most important of all of them. Core values include things like your religious beliefs, your political philosophy, or basically your views on things like authority and society and human nature. Your values around appropriate communication, gender roles, parenting philosophy, and plans for parenting, or how many kids you want, when you want to have kids, where you want to live, the sort of lifestyle you want to have. All of these things represent some of your values, and finding more alignment is generally better for the longevity of a relationship. Third one, compatible life goals. So this is somewhat similar to values in that your values often drive your life goals. So our view of right and wrong, that's how you can think about your values, is what do you think is a good moral life to live? And what are your worldviews that drive that idea of a good life, a good marriage, what it means to be a good person? And so your life goals often align with that vision of a good life for yourself. So what are your career goals? What are your family goals? What type of character traits do you want to develop? Essentially, what do you want to accomplish while you're on this earth? You want those to not necessarily be identical, but they need to be compatible enough that you guys can both be accomplishing the goals that matter the most to you while you're together. And lastly, you have to be prepared to put the needs of the family and the marriage above yourself. Now, of course, we have to take care of ourselves. That is super important. We can't care for other people if we aren't caring for ourselves at all. However, it's really our innate instinct to protect ourselves, to look after our own interests. And so for most people, the jump is not to adopt a mindset of self-care. It's often to adopt a mindset of placing ourselves second and placing the marriage and the family above ourselves and our own individual interests. So if we're tired, we're hungry, we're cranky, we had a bad day, whatever it is, putting aside those moods, putting aside little preferences here and there that don't really matter that much, that might cause extra conflict or might make your relationship more difficult, but that you want. Say, for example, if your husband really likes to choose where you guys go out to eat, let him choose. You know, even if you don't necessarily love Indian food or you don't love Italian food, whatever it is, but if he really wants to go somewhere, let him have that moment. Being willing to let go some of the need to protect our own interests if it would hurt the interests of the family. That's really important for finding in somebody else and having in yourself. Rule number 4, find your marriage's authority. So I mentioned earlier the idea of having a vision for the sort of marriage that you want, that's often very driven by our values. Finding an authority for your marriage is finding some vision, some entity. For some people, that's God. For some people, that's an ideal for their life, for their relationship, that's outside of themselves, it's outside of their spouse, and it's what they're aiming at for their marriage. Rule number 4, find your marriage's authority. For my religious couples, this might be God. This might be the biblical idea of marriage. For my non-religious couples, this might be a vision of your marriage that you both have, that you create together. It might be a collection of attributes about your relationship that you want to live up to. Essentially, you want some perfect ideal of the relationship that you want with your spouse, and you hold that together in both of your minds as the aim that you're moving towards in your life together. The reason you want this vision to be perfect is because we only make as much progress as the perfection of our aim. So you may have heard the saying that, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll land among the stars. The idea is that if we aim for perfection, we know we're never going to hit it, but we're going to end up a lot closer than if we aim for something below perfection. And so the advantage of having a vision for your marriage, some authority, some ideal outside of you and your spouse, there's a few things that are really good about this. Number 1, you guys will know, both of you, if you're headed in the right or wrong direction, because you'll be able to say, with everything I do today, am I moving us closer to that vision of my marriage that I want to achieve, or am I moving us further away? And that's really important, because that means that you're not going to all of a sudden find yourself in some situation you guys don't want to be in after years and years of allowing the relationship to deteriorate because you have a vision for your relationship that you want, that you'll know if you are or aren't moving closer to every single day. You're not going to let the breakdown of your relationship creep up on you. You'll be able to hold yourself accountable, and your spouse will be able to do the same. Second, it's a lot easier to apologize for getting you two off track if you're not apologizing to your spouse for breaking your spouse's rules or breaking your spouse's idea of the relationship. You both have bought into this vision. You've created it together. You've sat down and actually do this. Sit down together for at least half an hour, if not more. And this is something that you should do over and over again and try to improve your vision multiple times with your spouse until you both are very satisfied with it. Sit down, write out the qualities of the relationship you want, write out the things that you guys should be doing, shouldn't be doing, how you should talk to each other, how much time you should spend, what the time should be like. Write out all of those things. Create this concrete vision for your marriage that stems from your values that you two have talked about. And then once you have that, once you both agreed to it, you're both excited about it, you're both passionately pursuing it every day, it's way easier to apologize for breaking your own rule than it is for breaking a rule that your spouse is trying to force you to live up to. It's a lot easier on the pride if we admit, I said I was going to do this and I didn't, and I'm sorry, rather than you told me to do this and I didn't do it because I really didn't want to do it anyway, so I guess I'm sorry, but not really. The third advantage here is that when you have this vision and it's external to the two of you, you've both agreed on it, you've set up a list of rules to get you closer to that vision every day. These rules automatically become consistent because you two have created them together when you're both calm, when you're both ready to talk about the relationship, you've agreed on them, and now those are the rules. You can adjust them as you go through life. It's actually a very good thing because life circumstances change. The two of you will change, so your rules and your vision can be tweaked slightly as well. But these rules are going to be consistent. They're not reliant on your mood or your spouse's mood or what's going on in either of your lives or in your relationship. And so you both will have a very consistent, predictable expectation for how you treat each other, which is incredibly important. Because it means there are no games of, well, I don't feel good today, so I'm going to talk to you however I want to, or you should just let me get away with this because I had a rough day at work, or I'm not feeling well. No, the rules are consistent. You two live up to them, and obviously we fall short. We're all imperfect, but our rules stay the same no matter how we're feeling or what mindset we're in. Rule number 5, embrace parenting with hope. I think a lot of times people believe that because parenting and having your own children makes your marriage harder, which it does, without a doubt. I mean, the research evidence is very clear that when people have kids, that is a tough transition, and it takes a toll on the marriage, at least for the infant and young child phase. I think a lot of people believe that because that's the case, that because parenting is hard and it can strain the marriage, that it's not good for your marriage. When in reality, I think that most things that are hard can be very good if we approach them with the right mindset. And parenting is no different. You can think about it kind of like doing really intense workouts, that we all understand that if we want to get physically stronger, if we want to get emotionally stronger or cognitively more capable, we do things that push our bodies. We do things that push our stress tolerance or challenge us intellectually, and then we grow. But somehow when we think about parenting straining our marriage, then that's no longer something that could actually improve the marriage or strengthen it. It's only something that could harm it. But I don't think that's true. I think that having kids gives a couple a shared purpose in a way that doesn't really exist outside of having children. And if you think about it, it's very logical. You're creating another life together. You're doing something to prolong the legacy of your relationship indefinitely. Because if your kids have kids and your grandkids have kids, theoretically, your lineage could go on forever. It could go on far longer than anyone's memory of you directly. And having that sort of legacy that you can share with another person, even though it is so difficult. There are so many trials and struggles that parenting bring, but approaching parenting with hope and recognizing that there are very few things in life that bring more joy, that bring more of a deeper sense of meaning, that will require you and your spouse to improve your marriage more efficiently, more effectively. There's so much good that comes with becoming a parent and becoming a parent with your spouse that's really worthy of having hope. And when we approach parenting with hope rather than dreading it or putting it off or even being dissatisfied with it in the moment once we're actually with our kids and we're realizing that it's harder to be married to our spouse when we have kids, if we can approach that with gratitude and have a hope for the future and understand what an incredible gift we're giving to the world through having our children, that's only going to help your marriage. And that's going to make your kids love you even more because they are going to feel like you believe they're a gift. And who doesn't want to feel like their parents think they're a gift? Rule number 6, keep dating your spouse. This is a really common one. A lot of people talk about the importance of continuing to date each other into the many years and decades of your marriage. I think a lot of people might make it even more complicated than it needs to be. It's very simple. Think about the things you guys did when you first started dating or when you were first married. What were all the ways you tried to impress each other or win each other over or make your time together special? Would you send love letters or send, sweet voice memos over text? Or did you have a special way of greeting each other if you hadn't seen each other in a while? Did you send little gifts when you went away on travels and then came back and were together for the first time after a few days or weeks apart? How did you talk to each other? How did you talk about each other? This is a big one. How did you dress? Did you try to look your best on your dates? Did you try to be attractive to your spouse when you first started dating or when you first got married? Did you try to make them interested in you? Did you try to be sexy? Did you try to get your spouse in the mood? These are all the important things to do when you are building up your relationship in the beginning. They are just as important, if not more, the longer you two have been together. But chances are, if you're like the vast majority of couples, you guys probably tried a lot harder to win each other over in the beginning than you do now. It is so normal to start to take each other for granted because you've been there. You've been there for each other for so long and you promise not to leave. And so it can be hard to embrace the idea that we need to keep trying. We need to keep trying to win each other over day after day and continue to behave in a way that we let our spouse know through our efforts that we never want them to leave, that we would never want to be with anybody else except for them. So what are the ways in your day-to-day life that you could start showing your spouse that you're still trying to win her over, you're still trying to win him over, rather than taking them for granted? Rule number 7, design your home around your family. So this one's my husband's favorite, for sure. I think a lot of people believe that when they move into a house or some space that they kind of just have to take it as it is, that there are going to be little problems and issues that they're having with their space, and that's just inevitable. And while that's true to some degree, I think a ton of conflict, so much conflict, can be reduced in your marriage and with your kids if you actually just set up the space to best suit you, to best suit your spouse, and to best suit your children. In other words, your space should serve your family instead of your family serving the space. So some big examples of this I've seen, some really simple ones, are things like, I don't know how many families, probably most of them, have conflict about where you put your shoes when you come inside from the house. When your shoes are dirty, where do you put them so they don't get the whole house messy? But a lot of the times I see that families don't necessarily have a designated place right by the door to put their shoes. Maybe the shoe closet is on another floor, or it's at a place that's nowhere near the front door, and so you actually have to walk from the front door to get to wherever you're supposed to put your shoes. And oftentimes people just kind of throw them around. But there's such a simple fix for this. Just buy a shoe rack. Just buy some stackable drawers to put your shoes in. That's what we did growing up, and it made a huge difference. So if you can go around in your home and point out all the little areas that are causing conflict in your family life, and you can figure out a way to redesign that space so that that conflict no longer exists, imagine how much more peaceful your life would be. Another really big example, when our son was really young, my husband had the hardest time adjusting to the loud closed cabinets in our tiny apartment. The cabinets were the loudest I had ever heard. And so I told him that when we move into our house, just promise me that you were going to get soft closed cabinets for our kitchen. And you know what? That's exactly what he did. That was one of the top items on the list. And now we never argue about that anymore because they're soft closed cabinets. There's no way for them to be loud. And so our son can nap in total peace. And I never have to worry about him being woken up by my husband when he's, getting a snack in the kitchen. Little changes like this might seem really minuscule, and it might seem like it's not even worth the effort because why can't my family just do these things that I'm asking them to do? But if you can cut down on 5, 10, 20, 50 tiny little sources of repeated conflict, that's going to eliminate so much of the fighting that you guys experience on a day-to-day basis, and you're all going to be so much happier. Rule number 8, establish a family schedule. And by this, I mean an actual literal schedule. Have a physical calendar that's printed out and in a place that you're all often in and can see it, or even an electronic calendar like Google Calendar is my favorite thing ever. That's really awesome to be able to share appointments with other people, but there are plenty of apps out there for shared family calendars among all of your family members. That way you guys all know exactly what you need to do at certain times, so that can be appointments, but it can also be chores. So if your son is responsible for taking out the trash on Tuesdays, put that in the calendar. Have him put that in the calendar. And if you're all supposed to be at your daughter's play 30 minutes ahead of time this coming Saturday, put that in the calendar. Just make sure that you guys all get in the habit of checking up on all of the things that need to be done according to the calendar, and even throw some color coding in there. Maybe put a color for each person. So you have a color and your spouse has a color and each of your kids have a color. It really makes a huge difference with you all being on the same page. And when you have children, this becomes so incredibly important and really beneficial for them because they start to feel more like adults. They start to feel like they are a part of the fabric of your family and that what they need to do and when is really important. In addition to that, as much as possible, with as few exceptions as possible, have family dinners. Family dinners are so huge. The evidence on this is very clear that families who eat together, they're happier, their kids have better outcomes, they're tighter knit. All around, families are stronger when they eat meals together. So try every night as much as possible to sit down with all your family members and have a meal together. In addition to that, you and your spouse should go on at least 1 or 2 dates a week. If that means getting a nanny or having a next door neighbor or a family member watch your kids, then that's what it means. But this really is crucial, that at least 1 3-hour date a week, if not 2. Again, this goes back to continuing to date your spouse. And this is, literally dating your spouse, literally going out on dates and spending time together, not talking about the kids, not talking about the stuff that you've been fighting about, not talking about the stuff that needs to get done in the home, but just being with each other, just catching up on what's been happening in your lives that you guys haven't shared recently, and really just trying to continue to know and deepen that bond with your spouse is incredibly important. And lastly for this one, the weekly family meeting. So every week, preferably same day, same time, sit down for at least 60 to 90 minutes with everyone in your family who's old enough to do chores. So basically someone who is 2 years and older. Sit down and lay out what the coming week is going to look like. And this should all go into your calendar when you're done. Make sure you set up some rules ahead of time for this weekly family meeting. For example, some great rules are nobody leaves the table until the meeting is done and you've decided what each of you are going to be responsible for the coming week. Another great rule is to approach the conversation as a team rather than as opponents. In addition to that, if you don't like somebody's idea for who does a certain chore or how something gets done or when something gets done, the only way you can challenge that idea is if you have an idea of your own that you think is better. So you can't just veto other people's ideas without having anything to contribute yourself. And really the point of this weekly family meeting is to map out what the next week is going to look like and adjust from the previous week. So talk about what happened in the previous week, who was doing what, how did it go, what adjustments need to be made going forward. Essentially like you are captaining a ship. Your family, you can think about your family like a ship. And if no one on the ship ever communicated with each other about what needs to get done, then that ship is not going to get steered in the proper direction, and it's probably going to sink pretty quickly. So the more regularly you can have sit down time together where you talk about how things are going and you involve your children, give them a seat at the table as soon as they can start doing even small things like putting away the silverware or cleaning up their toys. They don't necessarily have to sit there for all of it, especially when they're quite young, 2, 3, 4 years old. They probably got 10 to 20 minutes in them, and then you can let them go once they've talked about their part and you guys have figured out what they're going to be doing that week. Getting in the routine, though, of having them there and having you all on the same page, trying to steer the ship properly together in the right direction, that's going to really help smooth things out in your day-to-day life. Rule number 9, find the right community. People who are friends with couples who got divorced are more likely to get divorced. We become like the people we spend time with. We become like the people who we're friends with, the family members that we talk to regularly, as well as the people we listen to online. The voices that we hear in our everyday life, that is what we start to gravitate towards. We start to become like the people whose messages we're hearing over and over again and the messages that we're internalizing. And so if you want a lifelong marriage, if you want a happy family, if you want a healthy relationship with your spouse and your kids and your community, find people who want the same thing and who are living in a way that you admire. People who share your values, people who believe that your goals are admirable and who want a life that's similar to what you want, who want a similar lifestyle. This is actually the best shortcut to developing character traits like honesty and persistence and integrity and kindness. All of these character traits that we all know are very intrinsically good. The fastest way you can develop these traits in yourself is by surrounding yourself with people who already have them, because you're naturally going to fall in line with the people that are closest to you and start acting and living up to the standards that they're holding for themselves. Rule number 10, get as much support as possible. So intergenerational families used to be far more normal within one home together, meaning that you'd have the parents and the kids, but you'd also have the grandparents, and sometimes you'd have the aunt and the uncles and other family members, and you would all live in the same house. And that was a really good environment in which to raise children. And honestly, just in which to be married. That the more people you have around you supporting you, particularly when they're the right community, like we talked about in the last rule, people who want what's best for you and who are trying to accomplish the same sort of life that you want, the more people who can be there, especially when you have kids, it is going to make your life so much easier. And it's going to make your marriage so much richer and easier. And the reason for that is that if you have other people in your life who you can lean on, who can support you, who can fulfill different needs that you have, whether that's you need a mentor or you need a therapist or you need a shoulder to cry on or a coach or a motivator or a cheerleader, whatever it is, we all have these social needs and desires for other people to play different roles in our lives in different situations. And if you aren't relying solely on your spouse to live up to all of those needs of yours, to satisfy every desire and every requirement you have for your social support, that is going to really ease the burden on your marriage significantly. So find other people in your family, in your friends, in your community that can fulfill those different needs of yours and who can help you in the ways that you need it most. That way it not only takes the pressure off of your marriage, but it's also going to create this rich, beautiful environment for your kids to grow up in, where they have not just you and your spouse who love them, but a large group of people who love them and are looking out for them and want what's best for them. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you know anyone who could benefit from this message, please share this video with them. It lets me know that you guys want to see more content like this. I'm Cameron, and this is Modern Marriage. Talk to you guys next week.